tonight's headlines. Lawmakers finish scrutinizing 181 clauses in the draft National Security Bill after 6 days of marathon meetings. At least 2 people were killed and 24 injured after a gas blast in Hebei province. And Cathay Pacific returns to profitability thanks to a rebound in passenger traffic last year.
我哋已經完成晒所有逐項審議嘅程序。
After 39 hours of meetings over 6 consecutive days, Chairman Martin Liao announced that Bills Committee has completed scrutinizing 181 clauses of the draft Safeguarding National Security Bill. The government has until tonight to propose amendments, which will then be vetted tomorrow. Before the meeting was adjourned, the committee discussed proposed changes to prison rules for those convicted under the bill. Such prisoners would not be entitled to a remission of sentence unless they are deemed to no longer pose a national security threat. That is unlike the existing practice where inmates on good behavior can see their terms deducted by up to 1/3. A review would be conducted every year, and Peter Kuhn wondered if that could be done every 6 months to encourage prisoners to behave. But Security Chief Chris Tang believes that annual reviews would allow authorities to better gauge the inmates' improvement in their mentality and behavior. Former Security Chief Lai Tong-kwok asked if the amendment to the rules would be retroactive. Daphne Sue from the Justice Department assured that all remissions of sentences granted to inmates before the bill is enacted will remain intact. She insisted the benefit is always granted on a discretionary basis and never guaranteed. Janice Low, Cable News.
Police from the New Territories North Anti-Triad Unit have launched an investigation following a spate of violent attacks against vehicles in Tuen Mun and Yuen Long overnight. At around 1:40 a.m., a white Mercedes sedan was intercepted by 3 cars at the junction of Hoi Wing and Castle Peak Roads near Sam Shing Light Rail Station. Multiple assailants then jumped out of those vehicles and attacked the 19-year-old driver with knives before fleeing the scene. One of the vehicles they arrived in was later found abandoned nearby with extensive damage. The male victim sustained serious injuries and was rushed to Tuen Mun Hospital in an unconscious state. Roughly 2 hours later, police received a report for assistance from a 28-year-old man whose car was pulled over near Hong King Street in Yuen Long. It's believed that around 20 men armed with wooden batons and knives suddenly emerged from 4 to 5 vehicles and began smashing up his car in a targeted attack. The man managed to escape by driving off and was unhurt. A third vehicle was intercepted at around 5:45 a.m. in Tin Shui Wai. Sources suggested the vehicle tried to speed away but collided with a taxi near Tin Zi Estate and mounted the pavement. The driver escaped on foot, while 2 other passengers were attacked by multiple assailants with knives. Both were sent to hospital, one in an unconscious state. Ms. Mark, Cable News. At least 2 people were killed after a violent explosion rocked the township of Yanjiao in Hebei province, about an hour's drive east from Beijing. Dashcam footage showed a massive fireball emerging from a 4-story building at around 8 a.m. The force of the explosion shattered windows from the upper floors of nearby buildings, while debris littered the surrounding area. A woman was hit by falling objects, while people traveling on the road abandoned their vehicles and ran for shelter. The building crumbled after the accident. Authorities suspect the explosion was caused by a gas leak at a fried chicken restaurant operating on the street level. Another 26 people were injured as of this afternoon. Over 150 firefighters were deployed to extinguish the flames. Cars which were damaged by the blast had to be towed away. Residential buildings and shops nearby also faced a long cleanup process. Police cordoned off the area within a 1-kilometer radius from the scene and evacuated residents. The head of the county's Emergency Management Bureau said electricity and gas supply have been suspended over the risk of further explosions. He expects residents and workers can only resume their normal activities by tonight. Maisie Mock, Cable News.
The holy month of Ramadan began on Sunday, but many Palestinians in the Gaza Strip have become accustomed to fasting for quite some time. Millions of residents in the besieged enclave have been struggling to find food and water in recent months as aid shipments are limited and inconsistent. With Israel imposing restrictions at border checkpoints, relief agencies are now trying to deliver supplies by sea. A ship loaded with more than 200 tons of food set off from Cyprus yesterday and is expected to arrive in Gaza later this week. Officials insist the aid can reach civilians as soon as the ship arrives at the destination.
As to Israeli inspections, the whole system has been structured, our proposal, on the idea that we can secure a sterile, secure environment of departure, which means you can avoid any secondary checks. And this is the core of this plan.
But most Palestinians sheltered in refugee camps were unfazed, saying their plight won't end until a ceasefire is reached. Qatar, which has been mediating between Hamas and Israel, admitted talks have stalled, but it urged all parties not to give up hope.
And all of us were pushing towards that happening before the beginning of Ramadan. However, that did not deter us from continuing the work and the negotiations to reach a deal, hopefully within the confines of Ramadan. We are not near a deal, meaning that we are not seeing both sides converging on a language that can resolve the current disagreements over the implementation of the deal.
Raymond Yang, Cable News.
Hong Kong's flag carrier is finally out of the woods, posting its first annual profit since COVID. Cathay Pacific reported net earnings of $9.8 billion last year, a huge improvement from the $6.6 billion deficit in 2022. The profit was also the highest in more than a decade. That was good news for shareholders as well, as the airline announced an interim dividend of 43 cents per share after payments were suspended in the past 3 years.
The COVID period was a very tough period for everyone at Cathay, including our shareholders, and we're extremely grateful to our shareholders for the phenomenal support that we received throughout that pandemic. And so with the strength of the results in 2023, this gives us the opportunity to begin to repay many of our stakeholders across the board.
Back in 2020, Cathay has issued $19.5 billion worth of preference shares to the government in a bailout scheme. Half of those shares have been redeemed in December last year, and the airline confirmed earlier plans to buy back the rest by the end of July. But its goal to return to pre-COVID passenger capacity by the end of this year has now been pushed by 3 months.
We are now in the middle of our rebuild journey. The rebuild will take roughly 2 years, and our projection is that within Q2 2024, we'll build back 80% of our passenger flights. And now we are working towards building back 100% of our passenger flights within first quarter of 2025.
He added the company is aiming to hire another 5,000 workers this year. Janice Low, Hebei News.